Test, test. Is it okay? Right. Alrighty, let's get started. Can everyone hear me? Yes? Perfect. How's everyone doing this morning? Good? Come on, a bit of enthusiasm. Good? Yeah, perfect. All right, so this session is about boosting your analytics with machine learning for SQL Nerds. Who here are SQL Nerds? Only a few of you? Come on, then this might not be a session for you then. All right, it's too early. It's the nice weather, I suppose. That's fine. All right, so my name is Julie. I work for Microsoft. I'm a program manager over there in the business analytics team. And over the last probably couple of years, I've learned quite a few things about how to leverage machine learning a little bit better for our team. So I want to share that with you. And I'm going to do that with a small demo. And let's just get started. How many here are using machine learning already? Say, for example, R, Python, yeah? How many of you are thinking about using machine learning? Oh, quite a few of you. How many of you are using SQL Server 2016? Ooh, that's pretty good. What does that mean? You have it installed. How many of you have just got it installed but not quite used it yet? All right, no worries. Okay, so the agenda today, I'll be talking about why machine learning and what is it behind it, like about operationalizing machine learning. What does that mean? And some tips and tricks and resources. So it's an hour session, so it's going to be pretty packed. This session is meant to be for beginners. So if you have deep questions around R or Python, I probably won't be able to answer in this session. We can take it offline. But in general, I just want to give you a bit of an idea of what you can do today with my, my simple demo. So firstly, why machine learning? Why are you interested in using machine learning today? Any takers? Why would you want to do it? I mean, a few of you have put your hand up, right? Yes. To predict the future? Yeah? Mm-hmm. So the volume of data is getting too much, so you might want to rely on some sort of automation, right? Anyone else? Sorry? To answer questions. Okay. So pretty good stuff, pretty good answers actually. In my experience, I find that from technology perspective, it's pretty cool. But if I cannot justify it from the business perspective, it's going to be really hard to get a sponsor who will actually help you to implement and get it going. Now, today I'm just going to look at it from the, I'm going to sort of briefly touch the business scenario. So in most cases, we want to do machine learning. Usually it's for automation. So there are a couple of scenarios of automation. One could be optimizing operations. So imagine if you have lots of things to analyze, you can probably use machine learning for that. And then one could be like empowering employees, so that way they don't get bored about doing the same thing, repetitive, same thing over and over again. You can probably rely on machine learning to do that. The other one is to do with delighting customers. So this is quite important. Actually, in the there was a Build conference not long ago. Just a sidetrack. If you are interested in learning more about machine learning, go to the channel 9. There's a Build 2017 video recordings. Go there, because the focus of that conference was geared towards AI and machine learning. So that's just a side note. Anyway, just going back to my what I was going to say about delighting customers. Joseph Saroj, our CVP for Microsoft for the data, he was asked at during the meetings, during the keynote actually, why would we want to invest on machine learning? There are two things actually. The first one was the automation, right? And then the second one is to delighting customers, because the ROI, when you think about it, the ROI might not be realized until later. But what we're trying to say here is that the ROI should be much more immediate now than many years ago. So getting back to the delighting customers, this could be in form of creating really cool products and services that they might be interested in. I mean, when you think about it, there are so many startups today, right? And we use things like the Google Map or Waze or Bing Map and things like that, and it knows the traffic, the traffic, what it looks like when you leave at certain times, so that's pretty cool. And then better engagement, so better engagements in terms of customer experience. Back in the old days, you might not have to care about that customer experience as much, but these days, the competition has changed. In the US, it's definitely customer experience is kind of really, really important compared to in some countries. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that if you have intelligent solutions, hopefully it will help in terms of enabling differentiation. So deepening engagement, predicting outcomes, automating actions. Now let's take a look at the operationalizing ML. So some of you may already know about R, but this is just a bit of a description about R. So it was built quite some time ago, and it was a statistical programming language, and it can help you also with the data visualization. So there are two parts of R. One side is on the the prediction side of it, and then the other part is the data visualization of it. So it's a really mature community, and it keeps growing and growing. It's open source, so a lot of students these days actually are taught R or Python in school too. So these open source languages are pretty getting very popular. So one of the reasons why, so I'm from the SQL Server team, by the way, and this is one of the reasons why in SQL Server we actually make huge investment into integrating R because of the power of it. It has established community. And then in 2017, we're going to add Python as well. So this is what we call the extensibility framework. Now, how many of you have used CLR before? That's actually part of extensibility, right? It's just not worded that way, but this is like the goal, the extensibility part. So I'll touch on that a little bit better. So some of the challenges of using R, if you were to do it outside of SQL Server, so this is how it works in the pre-2016, pre-SQL Server 2016. First, you probably have to move the data from some location. Chances are it's going to be like some sort of files that will be stored in someone's machine. Trust me, this actually has happened to my previous teams before. And then they use R to transform the data, they use it to predict, and then after that, if they want to deploy it, it's actually not really that easy, because the data scientists actually work in silo from the rest of the data team, like the DBAs or the database developers. So productionizing this is really tricky. And then on top of that, there's always the issue of the scale and performance. And I still remember I used to work in Malibu, actually. The data scientist said that, look, I've got 100,000 of records here in my sample data, but I'm already struggling. It's just sitting on my VM, and then the VM gets shut down, blah, blah, blah. So it's like the scale is just not good. Maintaining it is just hard. So these are the common challenges of using R. So those who are using R today, is that something that you experience? Or you're not productionizing? You have someone at the back said yes. So in terms of operationalization, PreSequel 2016, if I have to put it in a picture, it looks something like this. So you'll have SQL Server sitting somewhere, in a box somewhere, and then you have Analytics Server, which is probably your desktop or something like that, or the data scientist desktop. And that's where you push the data to, and then you push it back to SQL Server to do the prediction. And then you'll have some sort of application out there, and then that talks to SQL Server, you know, the transaction stuff. And then you'll have some sort of embedded logic for scoring inside the application. Then you have to push SQL Server to new data. So it's a bit messy, right? I know that you're all from California, and I'm not. This is probably something familiar to you, but it's not something that is familiar to me, the traffic. So we're moving data from everywhere, from one SQL Server to someone's box to eventually an application somewhere, and then it gets outdated. You have to retrain. Then if you retrain the model, it's like, you know, you push data back and forth. So it looks a bit like this, and it's pretty darn messy, right? Now, it gets you, you know, it gets us thinking, the SQL Server team, most of us thinking, how can we operationalize this inside SQL Server? Actually, before SQL Server 2016, with a lot of tweaking and all these things, you could sort of integrate with R a bit closer, but it's not as smooth. If you're interested in how to do that in PreSequel 2016, there's a guy named Thomas Castron. He's really good in explaining how it works. I think he wrote a blog about it. So if you're still stuck in pre-2016, there's a way, but it's just a bit more difficult. So what I'm trying to say here is that you have the database sitting somewhere in the darker box, right? And then you have the intelligence that sits in the application. Most of the cases, that's what happens today. Now, what if we can actually add the in-database advanced analytics? So meaning that the database contains the data and all the prediction stuff that it has to do. So this is what we're proposing, or this is what we're doing, actually, already doing in SQL Server 2016. So using SQL Server R Services, it solves a lot of problems. It reduces or eliminates the data movement. So the data and the training and all that stuff, it all happens in the database. And you can even do the versioning of the model inside the database too. And then you can deploy the R scripts and models just using T-SQL stored procedures. And on top of that, because it lives inside SQL Server, actually what comes with SQL Server is the RevoScale R version of it, which means it's more scalable, right? So, and then you can also use column store indexes that makes it faster. So that's a lot better than exporting data out into CSV and then working on your own laptop or desktop with R. So it's all integrated, it's all nice. So essentially, what it looks like is in terms of what developer to do this, if you're a database developer as well as doing the dual role as data scientist, you can develop or experiment with your R code inside your own R IDE. So that's normal. That's something that you would do. It doesn't have to. You don't have to change that. And then once you train the model, you can save that model inside SQL Server, and then just execute it using the SB execute external script. So that's a new stored procedure that is available in SQL Server 2016 today. And then you can deploy the code that you want with the prediction model, and then use the XB execute external script again to do the prediction. Once that's done, you can pretty much, the application can pretty much just call that stored procedure like you would normally call T-SQL stored procedure. Any questions so far? Yeah? All right, so essentially what I'm saying here is using SQL Server 2016, it's like a clean kitchen. Who doesn't love that? I mean, I love clean kitchen, but then again, I love cooking, so I always like my kitchen to be clean. So to me, it's having SQL Server 2016 with R inside is just much easier to manage. So what's going to happen, or what I described to you earlier, if I have to look at it from the architecture diagram, it looks something like this. So SQL Server will inside it can do the model training as well as scoring. And then the conversation to applications is just in terms of transactions, which is good. And then the predictions all done inside SQL Server. So the application just calls the SB execute external script, and then it will just do the give you the prediction outcome. All right, so who's ready for demo? Yay! Enough talking, Julie. We want to see things. All right, so for my demo, I'm on Twitter. So my Twitter handle is MissSQL Girl, MSSQL Girl. So I decided to do something fun about this. So I've created a frozen yogurt app. So my alter ego, MissSQL Girl, is selling frozen yogurt now. So as a business owner, I'm asking myself, so I want to improve the customer experience. I want to be able to sort of upsell, just like, you know, when you go to certain food chain restaurant, they might ask you, would you like fries with that? So I'm also doing the same thing. Would you like toppings with that? But instead of asking them, maybe I can build something that can predict whether the person would like toppings with their frozen yogurt, because toppings are heavier, therefore, and frozen yogurt is sold by weight. So therefore, I will hopefully make more money that way. So this is me a while back. So pretty much, you know, I want to be able for the app to predict, oh yeah, Julie would like toppings probably 86% of the time, or likelihood is 86%. How about Mr. Bean? Probably 15%. How about Shirley Temple, maybe back then? 96%, right? So if you want to participate, you can send me an email right now. That's my email address. Put the subject SQL for you. Just like shown like that, and then attach a picture. Don't copy and paste, attach the picture. And then let's see if I can predict your likelihood of wanting toppings. So I'm going to leave it a minute, and then before I move to the other slide. I see a few people participating. Come on, you want to crash my system, you want to crash my demo, so I need more participations. Oh, by the way, with the pictures that you sent at the end of this presentation, I will delete them. So I understand all privacy and everything else. I actually work on the privacy side of SQL Server, so I know and I understand that it might be a concern of for you. All right, so I'm going to change the slide. Someone's still typing. I should have made a QR code, right? That way it's just like click and that's it. All right. Actually, I want to ask, how many of you are using CLR today? Nobody using CLR inside SQL Server where you write C# code, add the assembly to SQL Server, and then run it? Yeah, one person. OK. So I have a component inside my demo. I'm actually also using CLR, so a bit of a refresher. It's not a new product. I mean, it's not a new function. It's been around for a while, but I thought I'll touch on it. All right, time's up. I have to move on. OK, let me just show you a little bit of the architecture. So again, I'm just using SQL Server and to do the model and training and the scoring, and then it will do the predictions to my Froyo app. So before I get to what the results will be, that way it will give you time to send the pictures and all that, I'm going to show you what it looks like under the hood. All right. So I'm not going to go through all the every single line of code line by line. I just want to give you a flavor of how a developer, database developer or data scientist will actually create an R script and how we can integrate it into SQL Server. So here, the top part, here it's just me getting the sample data here. So I'm going to execute it. I'm using Visual Studio 2017, which comes with RTVS, which is R Tools for Visual Studio. I quite like using it. If I'm not using RTVS, I usually use RStudio. So if you're learning R or getting into R, those two are probably the two tools that you want to try out. So to execute this, I'm just clicking Control Enter, and then the R Interactive will show me that it's actually running the command lines, and then it's getting all the, it's just storing the variables there. So at the moment, I actually haven't, oh, I lied. I am already calling the RX SQL Server data. So that's actually executing the select top 1000 from my sample database. Let me switch back to here. So just to show you what the data looks like. So can you see at the back? Is the font big enough? Yeah? Okay, good. So it's just a really simple sort of simple table with the age, the gender, the emotion, as well as whether they would like toppings or not. So that's my sample data. That's what I'm using to train the model. So once I do that, I'm simply calling the RX logit, and train the model. Nothing fancy. And this is something that you can simply copy and paste and replace it with your data set. And then, let me see here. So I'm just evaluating the model. And let me run that. OK. Before I evaluate the model, the actual logistic regression function that I just called actually gives me an output. Now, how many of you are familiar with statistics? OK, good. Excellent. You'll probably be better than me. So in the most basic way that I could explain this is that when you try to predict something, there's always the outcome, right? But there's also the confidence level and how significant it is. So what I've just done here is actually pretty much saying that, well, which one can I use to which of the most important sort of variables that I can use to reject the null hypothesis, or the ones that can help me with the predict. The fact that I've got quite a lot of them are actually, so if you look at the probability of z, so the last column here, let me zoom in. Here you go. So this last one here, the probability, the far away it is from 1, the more significant it is. So I'm glad that my sample data set is worthy enough to be used for prediction. If there is no, if there's no correlation, then it's really hard to do prediction, right? Anyway, so I won't dwell on that. It's something for a bedtime reading. What else have I got here? Okay, so now I just wanted to see how accurate it is. So typically, data scientists will look at the prediction and create the model, and then see whether it's worthy enough to be used. So that's what I'm doing. Let me just double check. Yeah. So I'm storing the outcome of the prediction. So I've got the sample data set, and then I've got a data set. Actually, I'm using the same data set, and then put it back into the model and see how accurate it is. It's going to take a bit of time. And then after that, I'm going to draw the ROC curve. So this is, again, something that typically data scientists would do to check the accuracy of it. All right, so I'm looking at the results. It's already there. That's great. All right, so now I'm ready to run the ROC curve. Might take some time. So all of this, I'm actually using the R engine that is installed on my laptop, where SQL Server is also there too. So it makes it easier that way. And just a little bit of introduction while I'm waiting for the results to come back. If you're using RTVS, and then if you're a bit like me, exploring a various version of R, in RTVS, you can actually choose which version of R you can connect to. So these are the actual R servers that I've got installed. And yeah, they're all open source. So OK, let's see how far away we are with that. Still thinking. Hopefully we'll come back soon. So one thing that I love about, just a side sort of talk, one thing that I love about the new Visual Studio 2017, I think they have this in 2015 too. So the 3 tiny bars here, let me just highlight it. That's actually related to your performance, because I noticed that when I use a bit of my resources, opening browsers, etc., then I have Visual Studio running at the same time. Sometimes it goes red and my computer goes slow. I think it's just an indicator that the resources or the CPU is a bit busy. I think these 3 bars are related to that. Come on. So training models, it's actually not as simple as you think. You can push all the training logic to R, but it still has, have to do a few rounds before it validates. Okay, it's taking a while. While we're waiting for that, let me just jump to a few of the important ones. So the next few lines of codes are actually related to do the prediction and to determine the accuracy of the prediction. And then the last one is to operationalizing the model. Now, this is the key part for the database developer. You can store the model inside SQL Server. So if I switch to here, let me just go to, whoops, this one. All right, so I'm storing it in a table called for your model. So if I go select stuff from dbo.froyo-model, if I run it, see how I've actually got, have created 4 different models, and they're stored in binary. So this allows me to version the different models. So the more data that I can use to train, I can also add a new, I can create new model for it. So it gets it, or it becomes smarter, really. All right, so it looks like that's done. Let's see the plot. So this is the ROC curve for my like toppings prediction. So it's actually pretty good. The closer it is to 1, the better it is. So let me also just do this one more thing real quick. See how I mentioned that R can be used for visualization? So this is why it can be pretty good to know R. All right, so has it done that? Yeah. All right, so this is the visualization part of R. I thought I'll give you a bit of a flavor of how it works. Yeah, so I'm predicting the toppings based on the gender, and then the like toppings prediction here is the probability of the toppings. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the the prediction side of it. Let me just go straight to the modeling operationalization. Whoops. Okay, so it's just gonna call my stored procedure. So from R, you can actually call stored procedure in SQL Server. So it's now persisting that model. So if I go back to my Froyo model, I should have a 5th model created already. See, there's a 5th one there. Okay, so it looks kind of similar at the moment. It's mainly because I keep training with the same data, so you don't want to do that. But ideally, you want to add data, and then it will change the model a little bit. So once that's done, I can now create a stored procedure. So this is what the SQL Server stored procedure looks like for other application or another procedure can call. So this stored procedure just predict whether a person would like topping based on the age, gender, and the emotion. And the first part here is just trying to prepare the data set. So I'm actually just using a single mode, so meaning that I'm only going to give one data set at a time. And then the next one here just gives me the model. At the moment, I'm just using top 1, so whichever one it comes with. I can order it by date, of course, to get the latest one. And then this part is the important part, which is the SP execute external script. So this actually allows me to call the call R and then say, please apply this specific model that I have already stored in SQL Server. So for example, the 5th model or something like that. And then apply that against the data set that I'm going to give you, which are these three variables, the age, female, and emotion. So let me scroll it across a little bit so it makes it easier to read. So what I'm doing here is providing what the query looks like or what the data set looks like, and it's going to be stored as input data 1. Now, in R, it recognizes that particular parameter as input data set. So that's how I'm hooking it up. So from the actual data set to R. So this script here is all R script. So I'm just passing the data set there, and then it does the prediction. So the RX predict is just a function to predict. And then the output data set is a standard sort of keyword that stores the output of the result, like the result of the prediction. So let me switch back to the demo script here. So now if I call that Subprocedure, so I'm actually providing age 32, and then is a female, and the emotion ID 10 is happy. The prediction is 0.854, so 85% of wanting to want to have toppings. Now, I'm pretty sure some of you probably have sent me some emails with the SQL for you, so let's have a look. All right, so it looks like, okay, great. So the last one that I sent was actually this th.jpg. So it looks like a few of you already sent me. Okay, so fingers crossed. I'm actually using PowerABS. PowerABS is not mature yet, so I do apologize for the slowness side of it, but it is getting better and it is being worked on. So let me show you the data set that I have before, so it might not be refreshed with your data set yet. So if I'm using Julie Andrews, some of the photos that she posted online, it thinks that it's 41, the age is 41, and the topping prediction is 69%. And then I've got Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra, Shirley Temple, myself here. It thinks that I'm 25. I'm not 25. I'm actually older than 25. But then again, this picture was taken a while back. It's 86%. And then some colleagues here, and Wonder Woman also interested in knowing whether she would like topping or not. So hers is 87%. And then Chris Pratt, right? I hope I got his name right. 29%. Sebastian Vettel, age 30, is that right? I'm not sure actually. I think it's almost right. 28%. And so let's refresh. This is going to take some time. And yeah. Let's see, hopefully it works. The problem with PowerABS at the moment is that it doesn't scale too well. So at the moment it's kind of struggling. When I only had 5 records, it's like, yay, I'm happy. But then when it has more than 10 records, it starts struggling. Yes. I'm actually glad someone actually paid attention. That's the piece that I haven't told you yet. Yes, you're correct. So the R bit is actually predicting using the age, gender, and emotion. I'm not actually giving the. I don't have anything in R at the moment that actually determines based on the image whether you're a certain age or female or not, or what kind of emotion. So that part I'm actually using C#. I'm using C#. I built an assembly. I'm calling an HTTP call. So HTTP call to cognitive services. So Microsoft has got cognitive services that you can try for 30 days, and it can predict a lot of things like from images. So it can predict whether you're happy and what age you are, whether you have, you're taking a picture with other people and things like that. So it's actually pretty cool. So yes, good pick. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct, yeah. Yeah. So this is still refreshing. As I said, PowerABS pretty new, so it's a bit slow. So I'm gonna switch over to the CLR bit. But before I go to the switch to the CLR, let me go to the slide deck. Whoops. So when you have to work with R, SQL Server, and PowerPoint, sometimes you get all your shortcut mixed up. So I do F5, Control Enter, Shift 5, and all that stuff. Anyway, so this is what I showed you earlier. This is the piece that I haven't told you. So when you send me an email, the email will be read, and I have image transferred to SQL Server, and I'm using cognitive services inside SQL Server to predict the age and the emotion and the gender. Now, the piece that I haven't told you is something called Microsoft Flow, and that's what I use to transfer the image to SQL Server automatically. So the only coding that I do here is actually the C# for the assembly, to create the assembly, to hook up to the cognitive services, to call the API, and then the R bit, which is to predict the models. I tried using the R code to call the cognitive services. Technically it can, but when you run it inside SQL Server, for security reasons, it cannot make internet calls, essentially. Like, it's blocked by firewall. So in SQL Server Engine, it has that firewall built in right now. Now, I don't know whether in 2017 that's going to be lifted or not, so we'll see. But in general, you know, you kind of have to be careful. Even with this C# assembly that I created, it was, when I added to SQL Server, I had to determine the unsafe, with the keyword unsafe, to just trust it that it's going to be okay. So, so bit of a refresher in terms of CLR. So I've created a computer vision API class. This is the magic of internet, copy and paste, tweaks here and there. Half an hour later, I got something working. So this is pretty much just calling the URL of the cognitive services. So I'm just providing the subscription key, and then I'm just saying that, look, for this specific, if I'm giving you specific operations, so for example, F stands for face, then call the, build the URL string, the API call to detect facial features. Yeah, and then afterwards, it's just providing the feedback in JSON format. And because SQL Server actually has a JSON reader, I'm using that too. So if I have to, let me go back to my Solution Explorer here. Okay, perfect. So this is this USP Analyze customer. So if I switch back to my diagram here, it's the one that ties everything from as soon as the email is received, that stored procedure is going to be called, and it will do the calling to the cognitive services, it will do the prediction, and then push it to the app. So the scoring and the model training, the scoring, it's done live, obviously. The model training, it's done offline, so that doesn't have to happen on the during the call. So this is familiar SQL Server stuff. This USP computer vision API local image is just the CLR stored procedure. And then after that, I'm just transferring the data for ease of use, transferring the image to SQL Server, converting to base 64 so that it works with PowerABS, because PowerABS only support base 64 image. And then I'm just using the JSON. So how many of you are using JSON function in SQL Server? Yeah, isn't that great? Life is much easier, right? I know that for sure, because when I had to do this, it's easier for me to get the age and gender. And then I'm just calling the USP predict like toppings, like what I did here. So it's the same stored procedure. And then I put it all together. Whoops, where did it go? There. And then I'm just putting it all together and inserting into my customers table. So that's all how it ties up. All right, any questions? You're probably dying to see the PowerABS, how it's going to crash and die on me. So as I said, it's a bit slow, and it's using this caching mechanism. Oh, look, I can see someone new. I'm so happy. All right. If I could make it bigger, that way the image is bigger. Oop, there's a zoom in button. Can I pick you? Is that you? Yes. What's your name? Julia. So Julia, according to Microsoft Cognitive Services, age 26. I'm not going to ask female age, okay? So she might, the probability of her liking toppings would be 85%. Is that almost right? Yeah, there you go. So a bit of faith, a bit of coding, a bit of PowerABS, a bit of Microsoft Flow, I can actually build something. And trust me, I'm a SQL nerd. I'm actually not a programmer by nature. My job at SQL Server, I'm a program manager for business analytics, so I don't do that much coding. And I think the dog agrees. Who wants to see Microsoft Flow a little bit? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to show Microsoft Flow. So this is Microsoft Flow. You can, I'm trying to think if, I think this requires some sort of subscription. So since I work for Microsoft, it makes it easier for me to try out different things. So this is Microsoft Flow. And it's actually pretty awesome. So let me just edit the flow to show you. It kind of reminds me of SSIS, but not quite SSIS. You can add, so this on new email is just an action that, that Microsoft Flow provides. And then I can just, provide details like, read from the SQL Flow folder, because in my inbox, I actually a mail redirect to the folder. And then send it to, when it's sent to me, then process it. And as long as it has the SQL Flow in subject and it has attachment, and then the next step is just getting the attachments for every attachments. It's going to check whether it's an image attachment or not. And then it's going to transfer that to my local folder for ease of processing. And then I'm executing stored procedure to insert into that USB analyzed customer. So it's this guy here. So it's executing this. So thanks to Microsoft Flow, which is actually the easiest part by far when I was trying to stitch this together on a weekend, by far, it's Microsoft Flow was the easiest compared to PowerABS. Yes? I believe Flow is cloud-based. Yeah. Yeah. So it might be a turn off for some. What's your concern? I see. Yeah. Yeah. So let me just close this. And what's so cool is that, you see how many failed here? Some of these failure is probably because of me. I shut down the laptop, so because my SQL Server is running on my laptop, so I shut it down, and obviously it cannot run the stored procedure, then it fails. And the cool thing is I can actually have a look at that history, and then I can click resubmit to submit it again. So it will just reprocess that. Any other questions before I move on? Yes. Oh, the cognitive services, yeah. Let me go to that. If Edge is playing nice with me, hopefully. Whoops. So if you Google or Bing Cognitive Services, Microsoft, you'll be able to see this. So this is an example from this photo. It detects people, obviously, faces. There are 4 faces. And then it provides the JSON output. And it detects the emotions and the score, so the probability. And then, so for each of the faces, it will do that. So this is the facial features. There are also other features. So let me have a look at the face API. The face API is one of the ones that I use, as well as the emotion. So this one here, does it? Yeah. So this face API actually compares the whether 2 people are the same, 2 photos are the same one or not. Yeah. See, this one here shows someone with, so obviously the text whether this photo has a picture of someone with, gender, what gender and what age. It even knows the facial hair, which area, which is correct. She doesn't have any mustache. I'm glad that's working because I'll be embarrassed and jump off this podium otherwise. Not really podium, it's a step, I suppose. I'm short. Anyway, any questions? Try it out. It is free for 30 days, I think. So I think somewhere on the top tells you that you can do the trial thing. So you can create, the maximum limit is quite high. I haven't exhausted my my quota yet, so that's good. Yeah, so Microsoft Cognitive Services. So far I'm using machine learning with a few different technologies, right? One is R, so if you have an in-house data scientist, statistician, they're probably familiar with R, leverage them. Learn R if you want to. I would encourage you to do that as well. And then for things like, well, I just want to reuse someone else's code, like cognitive services, you can still do that. You can still use that. And you can use CLR to call the sort of internet-based API. So that's pretty nice. And all of this is using SQL Server. Like, no data being moved around. It's all inside SQL Server. I mean, except for I actually copied the image from my email to locally, but that's just, for management reason. Okay, so let me go back to my slide. Okay, so if you how many of you have tried SQL Server 2017? Oh, one person, yeah. Did you install it on Windows or Linux or Docker or all of the above? Windows? Okay, cool. So if you're familiar with SQL Server 2016, the R services will be included in the setup. So it looks something like this, right? And then in 2017, so the CTP2, I think it's probably now 2.1. I'm trying to keep up. The CTP2 will show something like this, which is fairly similar. It just says machine learning services. So it has two components now, R and Python. It's up to you which one you want to install. I'm an R person, not a Python person, so I would install R. Probably I should learn Python soon, too. A couple of things that you might want to do before you get started with SQL Server and R. Now, this is the trap that I fell when I tried this. It's like, I could not get it working, something to do with authentication issue. And it turns out that in SSMS, there's a custom report that you can add to look at the SQL Server R Services configuration. Now, it will check 4 different things, like shown on this screen. One of them, if you had authentication issue, would likely say the implied authentication enabled, it will be either orange or red or something like that. Now, if you click on the View SQL script, it will tell you the script that you have to execute to fix the authentication issue. So once I did that, everything is running fine. So I can use trusted database connection. I don't have to muck around with creating a SQL login or anything like that. So SSMS custom reports. Anyway, move on. So this is the extensibility framework. You're actually sort of familiar with it already because CLR has been around for a while, but it's just a reminder that we're kind of now looking at all this extensibility external to SQL as our extensibility framework, and this is the way we actually, the SQL Server team wants to invest. So you can host external runtime securely on SQL Server machine. That's one advantage of running it in SQL Server, besides the clean kitchen looking. Resource governor, you can actually manage it from SQL Server there. And you can integrate it with SQL query execution, like I showed you earlier, and then the implied authentication just makes it easier to run and make sure that it can run in a secure, proper manner. A couple of the don'ts and the do's, so let me just show all of them. So these are based on the customer learning. So we talk to our customers and see how they're using R and SQL Server together. So if you're coming from the data scientist background or running, familiar with R, don't just copy and paste your R code and hope that SQL Server will run. It's not how it works. There are a couple of sort of adjustments that you have to do. So the training and all that stuff, do it in R. Once the model is ready, push it to SQL Server. Don't embed secrets in scripts. I was actually pretty guilty on that. Actually, no, I didn't do that, sorry. The secrets, you know, the cognitive services, it requires the API subscription key. Try not to embed that inside CLR, just in case someone will abuse it, obviously. The data transformations, do it in SQL Server, don't do it in R, because R kind of can be a bit slow and can be resource consuming. SQL Server comes with column store index and all this beautiful stuff, you know, take advantage of it. Try to process everything as part of a stored procedure. That way you can just, you know, tie it up nicely. So don't, you know, just don't call it in disparate manner. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah, don't embed the R or Python code directly in application. So the reason why we're doing this on the first place is so that you can have R running in SQL Server, so that way the application doesn't have the intelligent. You want the database to have the intelligent. Now what you want to do is try to use RTVS or PTVS. So PTVS is Python tools for Visual Studio or RStudio or the IDE to manage your R script. There's SQL compute context within R if you install it as part of SQL Server. And it's pretty useful because it will just invoke the refo scale R stuff. Do all the data processing in SQL Server and model management. So this is the model versioning inside database or in your database. Yeah, so leverage the best of T-SQL, R, and Python. So all of this is just knowing the pros of each technology or each language, right? So these are some examples of what you can do. So for example, classification, classify new reviews based on the old rating reviews, use text classification model, which actually exists, campaign optimization, so you know, targeting to the right customers rather than just bombarding. We all hate spam, so the more targeted it is, the better. Fraud detection, so this is quite important, especially for like insurance or banks or things like that, or even services, making sure that, that you can avoid these fraudulent transactions. The 3 scenarios that I mentioned, they're all available on GitHub. So one of our program managers, UC, he actually put together scripts that you can use, copy and paste, and then you know, try that at home. So this is what's coming in 2017. So we're going to have native scoring for Microsoft R server model. So just calling the T-SQL predict function. Actually, how many of you are using data mining? SSAS has got data mining. So it's kind of like the DMX keyword or syntax. I haven't checked it out, by the way. So I haven't checked out the 2017 version. In database package management, which is going to be pretty useful, so you can create library or use library inside and manage it that way. R services is going to come to Azure SQL Database. How many of you are using Azure SQL Database? Oh, cool. You're like the leader right now. You tried everything. You sent me email and it's working. Like, she's a true SQL nerd. There you go. Feature release, ML services in SQL Server on Linux. It's not in 2017, but it will probably be there. And failover cluster support. So a few resources. So these are the key things that you want to take pictures now. I will publish this online on the SQL Saturday website so that you can go. But yeah, like I said before, the Build conference that happened in Seattle last month, it was heavily focused on AI and machine learning or deep learning. Check it out. There are lots of useful resources in terms of, for example, what's available for you today. And you can kind of guess as well, where is Microsoft going with all this technology. For those who are using R or doing machine learning or data science, I am actually interested in talking to you as part of our feedback program. I do have surveys here. So I beg you to come and see me after and help me with the survey. I just really want to know what are the things that you're doing and what are the challenges when you're trying to implement machine learning or implement SQL Server with R. So. And another plug, for my other session, actually it's more like a group session at 2:15. So at 2:15, at 2:15, where is it? In the AWS room, which is over there, there's going to be Women in Technology session. Now, a lot of us actually think that Women in Technology is exclusive for women. It's not true. Come in because that way you learn to understand what are the challenges that we see today, and just learn some of the biases that exist at workplace these days, and how we can mitigate that, and how we can be better in working together. We'll talk about career as well. There'll be a few panels, a few people in the panel. Kaylin, I cannot remember all the names. Sarah and myself. So we'll be able to talk. I want interactive discussions, especially if you're managers. Please do attend because these things are important. I'll talk more about it later. So, any questions? Yes, so it will be on the website. Sorry, let me just think. Okay, I've got 5 minutes. SQL Server 2014 doesn't have R installed, but there is a way of getting it working. So we can chat after and I'll show you the website, or at least the person who has presented many times about it, and he has lots of useful resources. It's just really tricky, trickier than what we have today. Yeah. Sorry, you have a question? Oh, you want more results? You want me to see fail and burn with my app? Thanks, Thomas. I really appreciate that. No, I'm just kidding. So let's see. Let me just minimize this so that I can refresh. Oops. No, not that. So I am actually seeing it in the back from the SQL Server backend perspective. So let me go back to the demo. I am seeing a few, like these ones here. Someone age 34 and 56 with 77% chance, so the one 34 female, 77% chance of liking toppings, and then someone age 56 who is female with 7% probability. So let's see. Just a bit slower. I tried not to use SSRIs. I was going to, I was like, putting my faith and investment in PowerABS to make sure that it's working, and maybe I should have used SSRIs because this problem would have been solved. Yeah, so let's see. It's a pity. I was going to do Power BI as well. Problem with Power BI is it requires a URL, a live image URL, and I'm not willing to post someone else's pictures on some website somewhere, so that's why I didn't do it. Privacy reasons, this kind of stuff. I've got, besides survey, I've got business cards if you want to have a chat with me, or if you want to get connected with the SQL Server team to talk about, some of your issues or concerns about SQL Server and R, or machine learning integration in general. Yeah. Sorry, no luck, Thomas. Look, I'm still waiting. Could be. Next thing, I was trying to do this on Twitter, but I don't know how well it would work to publish someone else's, like some sort of machine learning guessing someone's age and publishing it online. It's not liking it. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you so much.
So how do I integrate 2014 and R?
Yeah, let's go have a look.
That was a great talk.